Complete decades. Well up and running, baby. Complete decades. Well up and running, baby. Complete decades. Well up and running, baby. Complete decades. Well up and running, baby.
Hello and welcome back to the Complete Tech Heads podcast with me, Tom Edwards. So I want to start off this week by just saying a big thank you to everyone who has listened and engaged or watched or whatever on any platform to episode 1 with Benji Vaughan. It did really well. So we're clocking on for over 2,000 listens or views or whatever across all platforms. That's only going to continue to grow, I think. So super happy with that and super grateful to Benji for coming on to join me. I thought he was a great guest. I hope you did too. So this week I am sharing a conversation I had on a webinar with Lead Forensics. Joe Ducarreaux from Lead Forensics is kind of interviewing me on this one. So it's a little bit the wrong way around, but hopefully you'll find the conversation as interesting as I did. I think Joe is a really lovely guy, really good interviewer, and clearly knows his stuff on the AI front as well. So it's called Disrupt or Be Disrupted, AI in marketing, and we talk all things large language models, generative AI, and the kind of implications for the marketing industry, I guess, is the main thrust of the conversation. So I hope you enjoy it. I certainly did. And I've been spending the last few weeks just rustling up some super interesting guests for future episodes. So please do watch this space. I'm really looking forward to some of the conversations that I've got coming up. But for now, here is me and Joe Ducarreaux from Lead Forensics.
How are you doing today, Tom?
Hi, Joe. Yeah, very well, thank you. Yeah, very good. I've just been playing around with the ChatGPT plugins this morning that I've recently gained access to. So yeah, all good.
Excellent stuff. It's worrying. I'm starting to refer to ChatGPT as sort of my best friend, because I just find it quite helpful with certain things. So let's jump into the questions that I've got for you there, Tom. What are some of the key ways that AI can help marketers improve their targeting and segmentation strategies, do you think?
I mean, there are so many ways, and I think we're only just sort of starting to scratch the surface now, really. I mean, you'll have seen, I'm sure, as I have, all of the different tools that are kind of springing up that are building on the GPT-4 API. I mean, for me, the big one is just ideas and inspiration. It's a great creative partner, and you can use it as a kind of brainstorming tool in a way that I think in a way that we've never had before. So there's that. I think the other thing that's really powerful is just the volume that you're able to achieve now. So with things like A/B testing, you can just get assets, creative, copy for a massive range of different verticals and segments in a fraction of the time. So it's like you're just able to test and learn at a much greater pace with the same amount of people. So like there are a few different things. The big two for me, I think, are the ideas and inspiration, getting creative, getting new ideas, and then building on those with humans and kind of figuring out the way forward. But then yeah, just the volume with testing. I think we don't have a huge degree of integration with the platforms yet. That's not to say that won't happen, and I'm sure it will. But it's really all about that volume, getting the different segments built in a fraction of the time. And I guess one other thing just to probably call out is obviously chatbots. So you can have much more engaged conversations with prospects, and I think that the degree to which the data that you get out of the back end of those chatbots is going to be really powerful, is going to grow a lot over time. Would be my hunch.
It's just something you touched on in the first part of your answer, is the creative side of things, and that's something I wanted to pick your brains on, because I wonder if we have programs like, if we have ChatGPT and things like Midjourney, which can generate images through AI, does that pose some sort of risk to the creative teams in marketing, or is it more of a collaboration, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a Good question. I think it does pose a risk to some people. Clearly, I mean, there have been stories about gaming developers who've basically been replaced by Stable Diffusion or Midjourney. But I mean, it seems to me anyway, like it's much more of a creative partner. Humans are still very much in the loop. Where we'll go in future, who knows? But right now, it seems like it's essentially turbocharging the creativity of people who are already pretty creative. So yeah, I mean, that's my hunch. It's the speed at which you can iterate on your creative ideas has just been accelerated so much. So you can test so many more theories so much more quickly. I mean, I use Midjourney a lot. I use it for thumbnails and for just dropping ideas to kind of visualize what's in my head. So whereas I might have had a conversation with someone that would take me kind of 15 minutes to describe what I'm talking about with like a whiteboard, like drawing diagrams or whatever, you can just you can iterate over your thoughts so much quicker in Midjourney and throw ideas out there. And then that kind of ties back to what I was saying about testing and learning. You can throw lots of different visual ideas out there as well and test them. So yeah, I mean, it seems to me so far that it's like putting a turbocharger on your creative engine, if that's not too strained of a metaphor. I think it really speeds things up and it gives you far more options. But yeah, look, that's not to say that there's no risk. I think the big risk is in the size of teams. So there are lots of people that like there's risk for like designers and people who are actually implementing these things, video editors, that kind of stuff. But in what you might find is all of those people who were just doing quite repetitive design tasks will now go away and create their own stuff. And that's the dream scenario, I think, is that they can finally execute on all the creative ideas that have been bubbling away in their own heads. So yeah, I'm naturally an optimist, and I think it feels like a very exciting time. But it's also moving incredibly fast. So who knows where we'll be this time next year? Yeah, it's so difficult to call, I think, at the moment. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, just to that point, I mean, if you look back a year ago, I'm not sure if any of us could have thought, well, in a few months' time, we'll be using these sorts of things and I think it is on that piece of the ideas creation, the brainstorming. It's almost like having like you said, a creative partnership with someone. You just get, right, bounce some ideas for this blog post or for this piece of content I need to make or whatever. So yeah, I do hope it retains some of the humanity, but I think you make a good point in the size of teams perhaps being affected there.
I mean, that's the risk, I think. But yeah, I mean, as an individual, as a content creator, and as someone who produces ideas for for clients, for marketing, you can just produce so much more. And like I used to use, I don't know if you've ever done this for creative ideas, but I used to use like random word generators to so I'd get like 10 random words and then see which ones spark a creative idea, and then just keep doing that until I get like 5 that I think are half decent, then take them to some other humans and then kind of iterate over them. Like now you can ask for 10 pretty fully formed creative ideas and then go away and get kind of test imagery for each of them out of Midjourney, and then take all of that and start iterating over that with other humans. So like, yeah, it's just a step change in speed and volume. That's we're only just now getting to grips with the possibilities, I think. And it also seems like, I'm sure you'll feel the same way as me, that there's just news coming out every day, like that's just changing things again and again. So yeah, like it's a very exciting time, I think.
Absolutely, yeah, incredible times to be in these industries, being able to see how people are using it and everything. So to that end then, if one of the key points you were mentioning earlier, Tom, was the volume of things, and if I've learned anything in my time doing these webinars and podcasts for Lead Forensics, it's that people buy from people, and approaching customers with a personalized approach is essential. So to that end, how can you use AI if you through the prism of, you know, it can do huge volume? How can you retain that personalization with AI for a customer experience?
Yeah, I mean, you know, like I think I'd almost come at that from the other way, which is that we're now seeing such a, like, even now, a huge volume of AI generated content coming out. Like my own inbox is full of what are clearly AI written emails, and I think you can still tell the human written ones, and I think that we will start to have a, you know, increasingly more of a premium on that human element, because even if the humans aren't writing every single word of it, which I think probably, you know, if not now then soon, those days will be gone of just writing a whole outreach note yourself or whatever, but the human editor is still going to be crucial. And I think, like, the reason for that is that, like, GPT will do whatever you ask it to, but there's so much nuance that you're not even aware that you know when you're creating copy, you know, when you're writing copy, that it's almost getting it all down into a prompt perfectly takes like the same amount of thinking time as it would do to write it yourself. You know, you get to a point where there's so much context and nuance and you know, specific elements that you want to include, that if you're writing it all into a prompt, you might as well just write it yourself. And so, like, I think what we're gonna, you know, certainly the way that I think that this will develop is that people will get, you know, a kind of generic piece of copy with a fairly lazily written prompt, and then the human edit will be the real crucial factor, and where the real sort of value add is as a marketer, and where you notice the difference on the other end. So as a customer, we're now being and will continue to be bombarded with sort of generic salesy AI generated content, which has been created by a fairly lazily written prompt, and you can tell. And there's not really any real difference between that and lazy sales copywriting done by a human, right? Like the big difference is the amount of time that you spend figuring it out, and, you know, working with your other stakeholders in the business, or with your clients, or, you know, or speaking to customers, whatever. All of those different things, you're still processing those yourself as a human, and you're still making decisions as a human. So again, it comes back to that same point. You're essentially just turbocharging your process. But yeah, I think that we can, will, and should continue to have the human in the loop, very much so, but perhaps more as an editor than a copywriter going forward, would be my hunch.
I think that's the key, isn't it? Is ensuring that there is still the room for collaboration. Because I heard someone say about AI, what it does brilliantly is that it's in the same way that a parrot, you know, it can say, "I want a cracker." It doesn't know that the meaning of those words are, I would like you to provide me with something to eat so I can, you know, get the energy and feel nice and warm and fluffy inside, you know. So it's like it does mimicry, doesn't it, rather than actually generating something that, you know.
Yeah, it does. I mean, there's a big conversation about to what degree large language models are actually doing reasoning versus just predicting what the next word is. And like, you know, when you use it, it does become freaky sometimes, where you start having a conversation with it as if it's like a freelance copywriter saying, okay, can you do that again, but just make it a bit more, you know, formal or whatever. And then inevitably you end up, you know, rewriting the bits yourself, the bits that, you know, the bits that you're struggling to explain to the prompt, you end up doing yourself, I think. But yeah, I mean, I think that analogy that you've drawn actually kind of highlights another point, which is that the level of context in the things that we say, that we implicitly understand as humans, that, you know, you can't necessarily convey in a prompt, because you don't know that you know it. You know, there's a lot of knowledge when you're trying to you know, iterate over a message, you know, a piece of copy or an image, or, you know, whatever it may be. You're aware of context and nuance when you're writing that you almost don't know you know. and so that, give me a cracker, or whatever the parrot says. There's lots of context, right? There's the parrot knows that it's hungry, and it knows that it likes crackers, and it knows that if it says this thing, you're going to give it a particular kind of cracker, whatever. We're probably straining that analogy a little bit by this stage, but you understand what I mean. Like, there's a lot there, and coming back to the point that you're making about human to human, that human touch. You have that with as you get further down the funnel with, like, you might have video content, or you might have, once you get salespeople involved and there's actual meetings happening, there's so much context that goes into a human to human interaction that you can't get just through ChatGPT spitting out copy that it thinks is going to, be highly engaging. So yeah, like, it's very much augmenting what we're doing as people. And look, who knows where we'll get to? Like, it's already shocked everybody how good it is now. Like, there's nothing to say that in 5-10 years time it won't be indistinguishable in pretty much every way. And then we've got a different conversation to have, which is, why are we here? What are we doing? Like, is there any point in business? Should we just let the AIs run the world? Because they do a better job of it than we will. But we're not there yet. So yeah, I definitely think that there's plenty of reasons for humans to be in the loop, in marketing, as with all of the other areas of business that this is disrupting, I think.
Well, I'm pleased that so far, Tom, we're not quite in Blade Runner territory just yet, but perhaps in 5-10 years time, maybe we do this conversation again, and it's not even us, it's AI versions of us doing this,
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, so have you seen Karen AI, the story? This is going a bit off,
it rings a bell,
topic,
actually. Yeah.
But it's a Snapchat influencer called Karen Marjorie, who has created an AI version of herself, and she's charging for like $1 a minute, I think, to talk to her. It's like, and they've kind of programmed in all of the, well, I mean, I haven't actually used it, but they say that they've kind of, replicated all of her quirks or whatever, and look, she made like $100,000 in a week.
Well, I mean, that's going to be quite uncanny, but that's very zeitgeisty, I suppose, isn't it? So,
yeah, it's zeitgeisty, and it's also scary. And I think in that context, context is worrying. I think it's, there's a degree to which it could be, potentially preying on loneliness. But yeah, look, you can see how that would be adapted and used in a business context in a really potentially quite exciting way. You could see how having your thought leaders, your salespeople, your CEO or whatever, like getting AI versions of them and then creating customized messages for all of your different verticals or targeting segments. And so your best, most engaging person is then talking directly to all of your different target audiences, and with a whole bunch of different messages that you're A/B testing at the same time, using this avatar of your CEO or top sales person or whatever. So, like, yeah, there are lots of applications that we haven't even got to yet. But yeah, hopefully it'll still be you and me chatting, Joe, in 5 years' time.
That'd be nice.
Maybe we'll do a conversation between us two, and then another one between the AI avatars, and then see which one gets more listens.
That's actually not a bad shout. Yeah, let's do that. I mean, we started to get into the realms of slightly the sort of the ethical implications of using AI. I mean, in the context of the social media influencer, and would it be ethical if it's preying on loneliness, that sort of thing. What are some of the ethical considerations that marketers have to keep in mind when implementing AI?
Well, I think the big one is IP, like in the broadest possible sense. So firstly, from the fact that these large language models and the image generative AI for images, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, they're all trained on information that a human has created, right? Like, we don't live in a world of AI created information yet. So they've all been trained on something, and there are already court cases. So I think Getty Images have started a court case against Stable Diffusion. There are a few others where they're sort of saying, look, this is the images that you're using to create, to train these models, from us, that there are intellectual property, you owe us. And so you might get to a position in future where like that, I don't know how likely this is, but where any business that's been using content created by Stable Diffusion or Midjourney or whatever it may be is then subject to having to pay Getty Images for licensing for the training data that's been used to make that model. So I think there's a big risk there. I think there's also, as a marketer, IP in the sense of your own IP as an agency or as a business. As we were saying, adding that human touch, having a human in the loop, having an editor is vitally important. And if you get to a stage where it is just all AI generated content, there then becomes a question over what value you're adding, what your actual morals as a business are, and all of this sort of stuff. So there are a lot of risks, and because it's moving so fast, these court cases haven't played out yet. So we don't know what the results of them are going to be. But like you see it in some of these, you see like some of the video that's been created. Like there was Will Smith eating spaghetti noodles or something. Have you seen that?
I don't think I've seen that one.
You've not seen it. Okay. So like there's a bunch of them, but they've got like the Shutterstock watermark on them, right? Because because all of the images that they've been trained on have got Shutterstock watermarks on because it's public. They haven't had access to Shutterstock's proprietary data set. They've just skimmed it off the web, and all of the versions on the web are watermarked. So like, that shows you the degree to which proprietary data has been used to train these things. And so yeah, I think there is risk. I use AI, and I recommend this to anyone I work with as inspiration, but not not the final product. There should always be a human editor. And then if you are creating or selling design content, I think you need designers doing it. You need to still create new stuff. If it's just regurgitated stuff that's already existed, we're gonna live in this recursive world where we're just rehashing old ideas. So yeah, there is a risk taking the human out the loop entirely, I think, which is why it's another reason why humans still very much are in the loop, because otherwise it could potentially just run away from you, and you could end up getting in trouble. So yeah, I think that idea of IP and proprietary data is going to become increasingly important. It's also going to become important on the training side. So like using big data sets, like Twitter have ramped up the amount they charge for API access. Like the Google have obviously got access to a huge raft of data from YouTube as well as Google, and that's all going to be used to train the next large language models. And so having that pool of data is also going to be really important.
It's mind-boggling, isn't it? I'd love talking about AI because it's just so bonkers the routes you can go down. But have you seen any? Can you give any examples of AI-powered? I mean, you say you use AI in quite a lot of the stuff you do. Have you seen any examples of successful AI-powered marketing campaigns at all?
Yeah, well, I mean, the big one is the Coca-Cola ad. I don't know if you've seen it, made by it's like a guy in an art gallery, and the Coke bottle goes around all of these artworks, and they're all brought to life through generative AI, and it's really amazing. It's a great ad. So yeah, I'd recommend anyone check it out. I mean, there've also been some funny ones. So I don't know if you saw the beer commercial.
Yes, I was going to talk to you about this because that's the one. Yeah, it's like a beer at a barbecue thing. Is that the one?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, a beer at a barbecue that then becomes a kind of spinning, twirling inferno in the sky. Yeah, weird, very, very weird. But yeah, so I mean, there's big ticket stuff like that. I think generally, like it's difficult to kind of identify particular campaigns because most of the time you don't know that people are using it, right? So people are implementing an AI-driven, segmentation strategy, as we were talking about before, building out variations, testing and learning. You wouldn't necessarily see that at the customer end. So I think most digital marketers will be dipping their toes in the water with this kind of stuff. And I think that it's actually being implemented in far more marketing campaigns than probably anybody realizes. I think there's, you know, there's going to be a lot of that. But yeah, at the high end, I think the Coke advert's the best one I've seen. Yeah, you know, it's only going to increase. We're going to see more and more and more of them. Things are going to get pretty wild, I think.
Yeah, definitely. With the adoption of any sort of new technology, there's a few sort of fits and starts, isn't there? But I really cannot. I've not seen the Coke advert. I will check this out after we've finished recording. But I cannot recommend enough you go and check out this beer advert, because it is pure nightmare fuel. It's terrifying. It's very strange. Like, weirdly, you can kind of see the thinking behind a lot of it, though. There's logic to why they've put so many like massive Cheshire Cat grins in it, because that's, you know, every advert campaign, oh yeah, having a lovely time at this barbecue or whatever.
Yeah,
it is genuinely scary.
Totally. The thing that gets me on that beer one is the way that they drink, the way that they're sort of sucking on these like amorphous blobs of like pseudo beer can. It's freaky. It's like the uncanny valley, you know. They look similar enough to real, to kind of convince your brain that there's something there, but nowhere near real enough to be real. And so you're just kind of constantly looking at it going, do I recognize that shape? I don't know if that's a can or if it's a ball or a person, you know. Like, yeah, very, very weird to watch. But you can really see where it's going to get to, you know. Like, I remember when these, you know, the large language models were coming out, or, you know, the first iterations of testing on them were coming out, like, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, maybe more. But they would write poems that would be almost good, but just weird and didn't make sense, you know. Like, and you can kind of see the same thing now with the video. It's like, it's almost good, but it's weird and it doesn't make any sense, you know. Like the fire thing, like you mentioned, the fire. You can see how it's got there, you know. You can see that because fires are weird and they kind of flicker in unpredictable ways, it's just sort of recursively thought that the fire will go on forever, and then it just goes all the way into the sky. You know, it's the same thing with fingers. Like, there was, you know, Midjourney had this issue with fingers for a long time that everybody was talking about. It couldn't understand hands, and you know, they all had like 7 fingers or whatever. And you can see why. You know, it's because every finger is usually seen in relation to other fingers, and so that's how it's understanding what's going on. And so, you know, like, they're clearly over time programming workarounds and solutions to that. So you're definitely going to get that in video as well.
So to move away from the sort of the creative side of things, then to go back to data, just very briefly, Tom, how can marketers ensure that the data they're feeding into AI systems is high quality and unbiased?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think most marketers probably aren't training their own AI. You know, I mean, there will be some, but for the most part, as far as I can tell anyway, they're either using, you know, one of the big large language models, Google's Bard or ChatGPT, and then plugins that have been built on top of that. And so, like, I don't think the data you're feeding them on is a huge issue at the moment. Although obviously, you know, bias in general is a very difficult issue and very sort of subjective. And I suspect the way to eliminate it is the same way that we've kind of always talked about eliminating bias, which is just, you know, cleaning the data, you know, good data in, good data out. But yeah, for the most part, it's the way that we're talking about bias in AI at the moment is in ChatGPT, right? And that's already been trained on a whole load of data that kind of has an endpoint. Although now it can browse the web, so that's starting to change. But yeah, so, you know, most marketers, myself included, haven't seen the data that's gone into training it. But I think, yeah, in general, removing bias from any data that you are putting in is in the same way that you would have done it before AI. It's just, you know, clean data, essentially, would be my view.
Okay, then. So then, I mean, to start to bring this conversation to a slight close, how do you see? I mean, I know we've said previously in this, like, we're not sure but you know, we couldn't have really seen where we were a year ahead. But I'm going to ask you this question anyway, Tom, because I just want to pick your brains on it. How do you see AI transforming marketing in the next 5 to 10 years, maybe even just a year ahead? What do you think is coming from AI? How can we stay ahead of the curve on that, do you think?
I mean, it's a massive question, but like I think what you will start to, like, one of the big ones in my view is SEO. Like, you're already starting to see huge amounts of SEO copy written by AI. I was talking to a friend who's a head of marketing at a tech startup. He was saying that he's been using I can't remember what platform it was. I think it was Jasper, to write SEO copy for him, general SEO copy, that would have taken a whole team of people weeks, and he's basically done it all in a week on his own. So like all of the content of the internet is increasingly going to be written by AIs, and so the thing that humans will still do is make the decisions, right, and set the direction, and probably still come up with the ideas, or certainly make the decisions on which ideas make the cut. So that's where the human, the executive power will remain with humans, and what you'll just see is a lot of noise. So it kind of relates back to what we were talking about earlier, maintaining that human connection. I think that's the best way. And I also think that if you can become within your organization the translator between the humans and the AIs, you'll be in a powerful position. Because although, yes, it's very easy to talk to ChatGPT, there's actually thousands of tools out there that people are building on the GPT-4 API. And so it's not just about talking to the ChatGPT prompt bar anymore. It's about which different tool that's been built on this should I be using for my particular function, which one is best, which one has the different functionalities that I need. And there are lots of people who, I know clearly you and I are really interested in this stuff, and we're probably keeping up to date with all of the different like different plugins that are being released, different products that are being built, all of that stuff. A lot of people aren't. I think most people in business realize that AI is coming and it's going to be very disruptive, but they're not necessarily following every single piece of news that comes out about it. So if you have a genuine interest in this stuff, I think keeping on top of it, getting to grips with prompt engineering, right? And I know they say that prompt engineering is a job title now. I think anyone can be a prompt engineer. It's not like you have to learn code. You just have to get very good at being very specific about what it is that you want, and understand that human nuance. Start understanding the things that are in your head that you don't know are there. And if you can do that effectively, I think you will be a very useful person in your organization, not just because you're going to be hugely productive and turning out loads and loads of work, but also you're going to be able to train, help, and support other people who aren't as in the weeds on it. I mean, also one other thing that I'd add to that is that you can use AI to teach you how to do loads of other stuff. I've been, getting back into the Adobe suite. So I've been working with Premiere Pro and Photoshop a lot more recently, and just for fun more than anything, as a side hustle. But it's so much easier to figure out how to do the thing you don't know how to do now than it ever was before. Like, I remember when I first learned Photoshop, spending half of my time scouring Google to find the right blog or the right video to teach me how to do the specific little thing that I want to do, and then I'd have to end up watching 3 and piecing together the precise function that I want, because no one's addressed the exact specific issue that I need. Now I can ask ChatGPT and it'll tell me exactly what it is I need to do, and if it gets it wrong, or if I'm on a different version, often the version that you're on is a problem. So the video that you watch on YouTube might be for a previous version of Premiere, and so you're on a newer version and what they're telling you to do doesn't work anymore. You can just say to ChatGPT, no, that's wrong, try again, or I'm on this version of Premiere, try again, or I can't see that button, what am I doing wrong? And it'll tell you. So like, you can, if you're so inclined, And I suspect most people have better things to do with their free time than me sitting around on a Saturday morning talking to an AI. But here we are. If you're so inclined with your spare time, you can really learn a lot of new stuff. You can become a video editor, you can become a designer, and you've got a co-pilot there that will help you with all of those functions that you didn't know how to use. So yeah, look, I don't know if that's an especially great answer to your question, but yeah, the answer is it's the possibilities are massive, and I would recommend, yeah, just any marketer who isn't getting really quickly up to speed with large language models and image generation is going to find themselves behind the curve. Whereas if you get ahead of it, you can really put yourself in a powerful position.
Yeah, you ever so slightly future-proof yourself, don't you, by becoming sort of if you can be the in-office expert on it, or
Yeah, I think
like
so. Yeah, I think so. And like that will remain the case until we all get get replaced by
we'll get
by the AI.
Skyneted.
But yeah, exactly. If you know, like the one thing that I kind of fall back on with this is comes back to what I was saying about proprietary data and IP, and the fact that it's not in Google's interest to let ChatGPT talk to like Google Ads, let's say, and it's also not in LinkedIn's interest, owned by Microsoft, who also own OpenAI. It's not in LinkedIn's interest to let Bard talk to LinkedIn and deliver ads on LinkedIn. And so I think you will continue, due to capitalism and competition, you won't get a big convergence into one prompt that you can talk to do everything. I think you will more likely get through that competition just a whole host of different tools and different businesses that are trying to win. And in the middle of all of that chaos, there is still space for consultancy of a person who is up to speed with all of this stuff, because people won't know what AI to go to ask, right? Because they're going to become increasingly reliant on their own data sets, and they're going to become increasingly reluctant to share functionality between each other. Having a human being who can advise on what's best suited, I think, is still going to be a very relevant job for quite a long time. So yeah, like that, there is a huge amount of opportunity for any marketer, I think.
Yeah, we're remaining optimistic, which is always
yes,
good.
very much so, very much so.
It's just a very quick reminder to everybody watching this that this webinar is brought to you by Lead Forensics. And if you'd like to maximize your marketing by finding out who is looking at your website, then we can show you that. If you would like a free trial of the Lead Forensics software, or if you'd like to book a demo, then you can click on the options here, get in touch, leave us your email address. We will get back in touch with you, sort out your free trial, or set up a demo for you. And then just going to leave this on screen for a couple more seconds. Then Tom, I'm going to come back to you for your last final thought of this session. So, Tom, you've offered up a lot of insight into AI, and I've really, really enjoyed this conversation. And I really related to your comments on Premiere Pro. But if there was one key takeaway that people, when thinking about using AI in marketing, would take away from our conversation today, what is that golden piece of advice you'd like to offer them?
I think just get stuck in and play, and like you've got to sprint, I think, because it's happening so fast that if you're not sprinting, you will get left behind within a few years, I think. So my advice, and this is what I think I'm sort of trying to do, is running to keep up all the time. So just dive in, like pay for ChatGPT, use it every day, look at the plugins, find out how other people are using it, and experiment, because it's not going anywhere anytime soon, and the opportunity is massive. So yeah, that would be my final thought.
Fantastic stuff, Tom. Thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. Did you want to just let everybody know where they can keep up to date with you, Tom?
Sure, yeah. So you can find me on YouTube, Tom Edwards Tech News. I'm on Twitter @Tom Edwards, and you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm sure we'll be linked on this post. It's /Tom Edwards 100.
Fantastic stuff. Tom Edwards, thank you so much for joining me for this webinar all about AI. Thank you everybody for watching. Do keep an eye out on Lead Forensics social channels for news of our next webinar, and we will see you again very, very soon. Thanks very much.
Complete dickheads. Well up and running, baby. Complete dickheads. Well up and running, baby. Complete dickheads. Well up and running, baby. Complete dickheads. Well up and running, baby.